What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. I love seeing posts like this. This is very reminiscent of a lot of what we've seen as, indicative of where the gaming industry is going. Hunter posts here and says, Spider-Man is still the best-selling superhero video game of all time in the US, according to Circana. And a reply on his post said, as it should be, Spider-Man is the biggest superhero of all time. For it to have a game makes sense. Insomniac's incredible game is also helpful. This game will sell itself. Spider-Man 2 is going to be a critical success. There's no doubt about that. And I think what's going on here and what we're going to see if we're not making petty squabbles is this is indicative of how, the Sony PlayStation's proposition has always been. Release these really big games, create, an ecosystem around them and deliver them to your audience. On the other hand, it appeared that Xbox was not responding in the same intensity, thereby they lost the console war. And according to Phil Spencer himself, he mentions this in an interview. So let's listen to a little bit of what it is that he says here. And I'll talk a little bit about how the reality seemed to have pushed Microsoft to provide even what I think is a better proposition, but you would have to weigh it for yourself and see.
Out there, I see commentary that if you just build great games, everything would turn around. It's just not true that if we go off and build great games, all of a sudden you're going to see console share shift in some dramatic way. We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everybody built their digital library of games.
He's right.
So when you go and you're building on Xbox, we want our Xbox community to feel awesome. But this idea that if we just focused more on great games on our console, that somehow we're going to win the console race, I think doesn't really lay into the reality of most people. Like 90% of the people every year who walk into a retailer to buy a console are already a member of one of the three ecosystems.
Well, he says three ecosystems. He doesn't mention the fourth, and the fourth has heavily carried Xbox's vision, which is PC. But nonetheless, I think this reality is something that, having seen the data, having seen the way trends had been going for years, it's not surprising that, Game Pass became this vision that was born out of what I think was desperation. I think Xbox had their backs to the wall. PlayStation was coming in to make this game a timed exclusive, Starfield. And then Microsoft, Xbox decides we're going to go and we're going to buy the publisher. $7 billion. They basically do it. And then I think initially, this is my thinking, that Starfield was more than likely going to be a game that was available on PlayStation as well. But I think they then woke up to the realization that the reason they actually lost the console war was because they were not responding to what Sony and Nintendo were doing in the market. And now what they've decided to do is they've taken this particular game, Starfield, put it on the Xbox ecosystem and locked it in, thereby as a response to the exclusivity propositions that are being provided by Sony and Nintendo. And I know the question about Elder Scrolls also comes up, but do not be surprised, Elder Scrolls also maintains its exclusivity as well, because this is exactly how they're going to respond. Now, I do believe nonetheless that Elder Scrolls is going to maintain its exclusivity based on specific, directives that are taken down the road. If Sony and PlayStation continues with this heavy-handed exclusivity, then expect for Microsoft to respond. But guess what's going on right now? Not only is Microsoft in a position to respond, they're responding by providing a solid value proposition for their customers. They were able to bring a huge release day one to Game Pass for a small fee of whatever it is you wanted to pay for it. And I think this particular stress is eventually going to play its way into PlayStation. For Nintendo doesn't seem to make itself known as a dog in this fight. They, as the market leaders, prefer to stay as quiet as possible. But the way the fans of Sony and Xbox are usually going all over the place, it's interesting to see how both of them, or how Sony is going to eventually get this attention, because the attention now is going to be, dear Sony, you just recently raised the prices of the subscription model for us. What are you providing in regard to this new price increase that we can consider valuable? Because Spider-Man is a single-player game. You don't need a subscription service to play Spider-Man. All you need is to spend the full $60 or $70 buying the game. But then next year, in my opinion, when Sony drops 2, 3, 4 exclusives, People are going to question and say, do you expect me to pay $210 to buy these games when I can wait for them to go on sale? Where in reality, I can actually pay about the same amount and be able to get 3 to 4 third-party plus possibly first-party exclusives on Game Pass. This question is going to come up. It doesn't matter if you love Sony or if you love PC or whatever, because most PC gamers like myself own a PlayStation. We've been in the ecosystem for a while, knowing that PlayStation may bring out games that we want. We've decided that we were going to go ahead and just dial in. And in dialing in, it's interesting to see now that because of the new increase of the prices and maybe other factors, Sony would have to answer that question as to what value proposition it brings. Because once they raise these prices and then people look at Game Pass and say, look at where people on Game Pass's money is going, it eventually starts to get interesting overall, because now they own a library of an entire publisher that's already been cooked, that comes with all of the popularity, all of the fandom, all of the fan base, and that is Bethesda. And if things basically roll possibly for Xbox, it's going to look like Activision is also coming into their ecosystem as well. And people who may be looking at all of this, who may have some intersectionality, basically, if you're a Bethesda player who plays Activision games, you'll most likely move over to the Sony ecosystem. If you're a PlayStation player who plays Bethesda games, there's a possibility that you might need to move to either the Xbox ecosystem on the console or move to PC to still use Game Pass as a means to get your foot into the door, or maybe Steam. Because guess what? As much as people may say Spider-Man is a big game or whatnot, Elder Scrolls is a bigger game than Spider-Man, hands down. And the question right now is Elder Scrolls going to be an exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem? Well, the answer is maybe, maybe not. I think now, because Phil knows he holds the cards, it will really depend on how PlayStation decides that they're going to go with it. Because as much as Xbox lost the console war, I think the content war has just begun. This is where we're going to see who the heavy hitters are. And Microsoft is throwing its weight all around and is making friends everywhere. So they're dropping content immediately at a good value proposition in terms of price. And then they're going now to shake hands and forge relationships that would pretty much remove Sony's grasp to the other publishers with their third-party exclusivity deals. By buying Bethesda, they made a statement. By basically going on stage to shake hands with Final Fantasy developers, that was the second statement. And possibly getting and acquiring Activision, that's the third. Basically saying to Sony, we're going to hit you where you actually are going to feel it. Because most of you know that Call of Duty has been one of the huge revenue generators for Sony. Basically, they take 30% or maybe a lesser cut of a game that sells billions of dollars every year. They've been sitting comfortably. But I think Microsoft is waking them up saying, hey, it's time for the new content, debacle to start off. And we're going to see who's able to provide as much content, not only that, but with the best value proposition for your wallet here in the next few months. It'll be interesting to see all of this anyways. But looking forward to Spider-Man. I think it's going to be a decent, time just reading and seeing what everybody thinks about the game. I think the game is going to be fun, maybe even phenomenal for some people, but it'll be very interesting to see the atmosphere go all around, while we, who are more of the, trying to be, in my opinion anyways, measured, can see behind the scenes. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.